tendering process. So at the beginning, sorry, to what we mention some of the considerations for the audit firm is the things that audit firms needs to put into account whenever they are bidding for audit tender services. So let's now have a discussion of them. Number one, competence of audit firm. Number one, competence of audit firm. Competence of audit firm. Competence of audit firm. Competence of auditor firm. So what are things that audit firms need to check out in part of their competency for the tender services, as part of their competency for the tender services? So in order to ascertain whether the audit firm, in order to ascertain whether the audit firm, in order to ascertain whether the audit firm, in order to ascertain whether the audit firm has the competence, has the competence to offer such services, to offer such services, to offer such services, the following factors should be considered. 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 Roman 1, availability of resources. Availability of resources. Availability of resources. The availability of resources, then below it you write, the audit firm is required. The audit firm is required. The audit firm is required. The audit firm is required to carry out an assessment, to carry out an assessment, to carry out an assessment, to carry out an assessment of its resources, of its resources, of its resources, of its resources, i.e., whether it has sufficient manpower, sufficient manpower, sufficient manpower, relevant skills, relevant skills, relevant skills, relevant skills in the area required, relevant skills in the area required, relevant skills in the area required, experience, etc., experience, etc., experience, etc. Roman 2, scope of work. Roman 2, scope of work. Scope of work. Roman 2, scope of work. Roman 2, scope of work. The auditor or the audit firm, the auditor or the audit firm, the auditor or the audit firm is required to consider details, relating to potential client, such as whether the work involved with a tender, the work involved with a tender, is within their scope, 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 in terms of the size, in terms of the size, in terms of the size of the client company, in terms of the size of the client company, in terms of the size of the client company. The number 3, legal considerations, legal considerations, legal considerations, legal considerations. The audit firm may also consider, the audit firm may also consider, the audit firm may also consider whether there might be legal issues, whether there might be legal issues, whether there might be legal issues associated with the tender, associated with the tender, associated with the tender, associated with the tender, e.g., need to comply, need to comply, need to comply with the statutory requirements, need to comply with the statutory requirements, need to comply with the statutory requirements, such as Capital Market Authority requirement, such as Capital Market Authority requirement, such as Capital Market Authority requirement. Then we go to number 2, information required by the potential client, information required by the potential client, information required by the potential client, information required by the potential client. So what will the audit firm consider with regard to the information required by the potential client? Such information number 2, information required by potential client, information required by potential client. Such information may include the following. Such information may include the following. Such information may include the following. So 1, Roman 1, the audit firm control system, the audit firm control system, the audit firm control system. Roman 2, availability of the auditor or audit firm, the availability of the auditor or audit firm, the availability of the auditor or audit firm. Next, reputation of the audit firm in the market. 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 So those are the few information that the audit firm will need to consider as part of the tendering process procedures. I will go to number 3 matter, tendering procedures to be followed, tendering procedures to be followed, tendering procedures to be followed. tendering procedures to be followed. Sasa hapa pia inategemea na the nature of the engagement. Is it maybe investigating a fraud or just the normal external audit services? Na kuna some of the key process there to be followed by the auditor when it comes to applying for the tender services. Like kitu ya kwanza, there must be the institution of the task force that will be undertaking part in the engagement process. So the work is to prepare the tender proposal to be approved by the partner in charge of that audit engagement. Wakishafanya hivyo, kutakuwa na now the preparation of the tender proposal. Then it has to be approved by the audit partner, then atumwa to the potential client. The potential client akipata atafanya evaluation of that particular tender based on their own internal criteria policy. Now, kuna some of the basis of doing the evaluation because one to check the competencies in providing that tender. Maybe the 5 basic rights. The 5 R's. Like one, the quality aspect of it. Is the firm in a position to provide the quality services required? Are they able to do the good job? The other one, it acquired in terms of maybe the price. Will that price be reasonable? That price be reasonable. So to be able to get it at the right price. Alafu ingine itakuwa on what you call the delivery. Once they've been given that particular contract, are they in position to deliver it? So, na kama ni goods, maybe utapia unaangalia kitu kama nini, the quantity, are we able to get it on the right quantity? Then the last one, the right R, itakuwa ni time. Then the person has the time to do the job. Okay, and lastly, you award now the contract. So let's go to the tendering procedures to be followed. So the audit firm is required. The audit firm is required. The audit firm is required to appoint a special task force, commonly headed by a partner, of senior management, whose role is to oversee the tendering process, The task force should then prepare the tender proposal, which is required to be approved, by the partner in charge, and then sent to the potential client, for consideration. Such a tendering proposal should contain the following. Such a tender proposal should contain the following. the following information. Should contain the following information. Should contain the following information. A, the audit firm's background information. The audit firm's background information. The audit firm background information. The audit firm background information, including the profile of all the partners, 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 and its performance, and its performance, and its performance in terms of clientele, in terms of clientele, in terms of clientele, in terms of clientele, in terms of clientele. Then B, the audit firm's capability statement. The audit firm's capability statement. The audit firm capability statement. The audit firm capability statement, i.e., a statement by the audit firm, 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 indicating that the audit firm has the capacity, the audit firm has the capacity, the audit firm has the capacity to handle the required task. The audit firm has the capacity to handle the required task. C, audit staff details or information. Auditor staff detail or information. Auditor staff detail or information. Auditor staff details or information, e.g. managers and audit assistants, e.g. managers and auditor assistants, e.g. managers and auditor assistants, e.g. managers and auditor assistants, indicating their areas of specialization, 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 relevant skills possessed by them, relevant skills possessed by them, relevant skills possessed by them, experience of those staff, experience of those staff, etc. Experience of those staff, etc. Then D, a list of similar clients, a list of similar clients, a list of similar clients, a list of similar clients that the audit firm has previously served, that the audit firm has previously served, that the audit firm has previously served, that the audit firm has previously served. And E, basis of charging service fee, basis of charging service fee, basis of charging service fee by way of quotation, basis of charging service fee by way of quotation, by way of quotation. F, indication by the audit firm, indication by the audit firm indication by the audit firm of its availability, to commence the engagement, if the tender is awarded. If the tender is awarded. Then G, details of any methodology or assumption. Details of any methodology or assumptions that are made by the audit firm, on how to cover and complete the work. And then you go to number 4 matter, which was after tendering procedures. Number 4 ilikuwa ni risk associated with the client and the tendering process. Risk associated with the client and the tendering process. Risk associated with the client and the tendering process. Risk associated with the client and the tendering process. The audit firm should consider the following matters. 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 So one, possibility that the auditor may not obtain or get sufficient information from potential clients. And next, number 2, possibility of wasted resources. Possibility of wasted resources. During tendering process. E.g. time spent, especially where the audit firm fails to succeed. The number 3, possibility that during such a process, some audit firms may take advantage by making false claims by making false claims, in order to benefit from the tender, in order to benefit from the tender, in order to benefit from the tender. And thus those who declared correct information, and thus those who declared correct information, and that those who declared correct information may end up losing a tender, may end up losing a tender, may end up losing a tender. So the next, number 4, the risk of unethical conduct, the risk of unethical conduct, the risk of unethical conduct, the risk of unethical conduct by some audit firm, by some audit firm, by some audit firm, by some audit firm, e.g. lowballing, e.g. lowballing, e.g. lowballing, e.g. lowballing. So that is summary tendering procedure. Summary of tendering procedure. So the kwanza ya task force, institution of the task force. Number 2 is the preparation of the tendering process. Preparation of the tendering proposal. Preparation of the tendering proposal. Then number 3, approval. Tendering proposal. Tendering proposal by the audit partner. By the audit partner. And 4, sending of the proposal. Sending of the proposal for consideration. For consideration by the prospective client. Prospective client. 5, evaluation of the tender proposal by the prospective client. By the prospective client, then awarding of the tender. Awarding of the tender. Awarding of the tender. Awarding of the tender. So you can use the word E-per-C. E-per-C. You try to memorize those key stages of the tender process. E-per-C. You're trying to memorize or recall those tender process or the procedures. The I for the institution of the task force, preparation of the tender proposal document, approval, sending, evaluation, then awarding the tender. Yes, PSS there's also some deviations happen, like when it comes to the tendering for quality services, some of the steps, these procedures are varying over just the same. Kuna ya kwanza hapa, the tender document, the tender document is how to prepare that tender document, which is just a letter, and we're asking for the bids from the client. You're putting your conditions on that particular letter. Number 2, preparing tenders. Preparing tenders. So you prepare the tender document, specifying all your conditions there. Then you put your part of qualifications. Qualifications for the tender. The qualifications for the tender. Qualifications. So qualifications hapo utakuwa na specify your competencies, like your experience. Utakuwa naweka hapo the key personnel who are going to do the job, the experts to be used in the process of performing the engagement. Now we go to submitting tenders. Submitting tenders, you know, send that document, that prospective client, then to the evaluating offers, which is now done by the client. Evaluating offers based on their own internal criteria. They will consider maybe the technical requirements. They'll be looking at the functional specifications of the tender. So based on their own internal criteria, review that tender proposals. Then awarding the contract. Awarding the contract to that successful bidder. Appear they are successful firms, they shall be notified from the ignorer. Make it, it's very important. And the winning firm shall be notified that they've won the tender. Now, peer your notice, prepare the successful firm, they have to be notified why they did not make it. Why did they not make it? You have to inform them why they did not make it to the success list. So that's all that we can get to know with respect to the tendering for external auditor services. The matters to be considered, the process of being solved. So let's now turn to the first paper to analyze some questions with respect to the issues to do with the tendering. So our first question is May 2021. May 2021. Question number 2B. 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 May 2021, question number 2B. May 2021, question 2B. May 2021, question 2B. May 2021, question 2B. So the question reads like this. Nyota Limited intends to invite tenders for the provision of external audit services following the expiry of the contract of the current auditor. The company has approached you as an independent audit consultant to advise on the general guidelines to be followed to ensure the best auditor is engaged. So required, from your professional background, advise the company on some of the key guidelines to observe in the tender for auditor services. Yes, just advise the company on some of the key guidelines to observe in the tender for auditor services. Your question is 6 months. So which are some of the things that you will consider as part of accepting that one. So very one, the first one has been the competency of the auditor firm. Are you competent to do the job? Do you have the skills? Do you have got the experience? Do you have the knowledge to do that work? Yes. Do you have the resources? Do you have the scope? And maybe the legal part. Are you legally qualified? Legally qualified to do the job? Alaf number 2 is information required by the potential client. Information required by the potential client. Information required by the potential client. Yeah, so the prospective client would like to get to know more information of the audit firm, like their backgrounds, their reputation, the availability of the auditor, their background, the availability of the auditor, the reputation of the auditor in the market. Such kind of information must be ready to provide to the client. Let them know you. Maybe how many clients have you been able to serve in the past? So what's your level of the reputation in the industry? Yeah, you are available, you have time to do the job. Alafu ingine ni kuelewa the tendering procedures to be followed. Being able to understand the tendering procedures to be followed. Being able to understand the tendering procedures to be followed. Being able to understand the tendering procedures to be followed. The tendering procedures to be followed, which is the IPC. Institution of the task force, preparation of the tendering proposal, approval of the tendering proposal by the audit partner, the sending of the proposal for the consideration by the prospective client, evaluation, then eventually awarding. Then the last one, risk associated with the client and the tendering process. Risk associated with the client and the tendering process. Risk associated with the client and the tendering process. So that's how that question wanted you to respond on it, for the key guidelines to observe on the tender for the auditor services. So one more question. Another question is on May 2017. May 2017. May 2017. May 2017. May 2017. On question number 2B, May 2017, 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 question number 2B. So let me read the question. Your firm has been invited by Mr. Abdallah Juma, the managing director of Misingi Bora Limited, to accept appointment as auditors of the company. You establish that the present firm of auditors will not be reappointed. When their term of office expire as Misingi Bora Limited is dissatisfied with their services. Mr. Juma has further requested that an employee of your firm assume responsibility of preparing monthly management accounts on timely deadlines. The continuation of the overdraft facilities by the company banker is dependent on the receipt of these accounts by the bank within 10 days of each month end. 2, the audit partner in your firm attends the monthly board meetings mainly to explain the management accounts to other directors required. Describe the matters that you will consider in deciding whether to accept the above appointment as an auditor and to provide additional services as requested. So that's not more like a tender, is on the part of what you call the client acceptance of procedures at the point of engagement. So which are the matters will you consider? Will you put forward before you accept that particular appointment? So there are matters to be taken into account there. There are matters there to be taken into account. So one, you have to consider number one, to consider what you call independence and objectivity, independence and objectivity, independence and objectivity. Yes, you have the independence and objectivity as part of what you call the ethical and legal requirements. Ethical and legal requirements. Ethical and legal requirements. Ethical and legal requirements. And next, consider professional competence. Professional competence. The professional competence. The professional competence. Professional competence. Like, do you have the skills? Do you have the knowledge? Do you have the experience? Next, you consider availability of resources. Availability of resources. Availability of resources. Availability of resources. You take that one into account. Availability of resources. Availability of resources. 4, management integrity. Management integrity of the firm. Management integrity of the firm. Management integrity of the firm. We also consider that. 5, reputation of the client. 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 Another factor that you also consider, number 6, is the risk. Risk in the client entity. Risk in the client entity. Risks in the client entity. Risk in the client entity. Okay, next one, you also consider number 7. Also consider something like a professional clearance. Professional clearance. Professional clearance. Professional clearance. Professional clearance. E.g. communicating with the previous auditor. E.g. communication with the previous auditor. E.g. communication with the previous auditor. e.g. communication with the previous auditor, e.g. communication with the previous auditor. Another one also which is very important is the preconditions of an audit. 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 You need to confirm that one also. The preconditions of an audit. Like the preconditions of an auditor do exist. You need to confirm this. Yes, I think you know some of the preconditions of an audit. If you need to confirm some of the preconditions of one. Before you say yes, there are certain preconditions that you need to check. Yes, you know that stuff. Yes, to discuss them for the engagement stage. Like one, the financial statements, another one value, financial statement, Guinea, ICS, Guinea, relevant information, information, Guinea, and restricted access. Unrestricted access. The draft account. The draft accounts. If you call the keywords, you understand what are the preconditions of an audit that you need to confirm as an auditor. Like for example, the financial statements, are they prepared in accordance with the identified financial reporting format? Yes, your client has made a financial reporting format that's recognized to prepare the financial statement. You need to confirm that before you say yes to the client. This one up is about the managers. They understand their responsibility to prepare the financial statement free from the material in the statements. And they also understand how it's their responsibility to put in place an effective internal control system. Do they understand how they're providing the relevant information necessary for the performance of the audit? Do they understand how they also provide unrestricted access to the client's staff, so to the auditor staff, and also to provide draft accounts on time. Okay, another important point up here, which is about professional fees. Professional fees, number 9, we also consider professional fees. Professional fees. So how much are you going to charge the client? Professional fees, how much you're going to charge the client? Now, with the client be in a position to pay you that amount, with the client be in a position to pay that amount charged. Sasa hii fee ambayo una charge must always be commensurate. The audit fee charge must always be commensurate. Must always be commensurate to the audit risk. The amount of audit fees that you're going to charge must always be commensurate to the audit risk. Auditor risk. It should be amount that's worth the audit risk that you're going to undertake. It should be worth the amount of audit risk you're going to undertake. So let's move on to other things after kuangalia tendering. So take up a subtopic. Okay, maybe just one more question before that one. Kama tumeangalia tuliangalia May 2021. Sorry. So our next area is audit documentation. Auditor documentation. Is audit documentation ambayo inajulikana kama the subtopic is preparation and retention of audit working papers. 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 Preparation and retention of audit working papers as required by the Companies Act. Preparation and retention of audit working papers as required by the Companies Act. As required by the Companies Act. So, as per the ISA, as per the ISA 230, it requires auditors to maintain sufficient audit documentation. Either audit documentation are just material information. It enables auditors to make a conclusion of financial statements. So that case, auditors must maintain their working papers in a very organized manner. They must be proper archiving for the working papers. These working papers are of two different types. They are of two different types. Two kind of standardized. Standardized audit working papers. Two standardized audit working papers. Now we have all the automatic audit working papers. Automatic audit working papers. So these are more uniform in their operations. They are more uniform in their operations. In that case, the working papers that can be used to perform any audit assignment for the clients, the audit firm do offer their offering services to. That automatic is a more of a computer program working paper. It's a kind of a computer program working paper. A computer program working paper. That there is what we call the archiving part of it. Archiving is now with respect to organization of the working paper. So how does auditors store this particular working papers? So we're going to find someone, we're going to go the permanent audit file, and after gonna current auditor file. The two files someone. Auditors can use to store their working papers. The permanent audit file, the current auditor file. If the files somehow, these of permanent nature or long-term nature. So the papers to be used by the auditor for long-term duration, put as a part for the permanent auditor file. We have the contents of that particular file. Is which working papers will you get for the permanent auditor file? For example, a copy of the engagement letter, the part of the permanent auditor file. Then took on a current audit file. This for the temporary, I'm a short-term duration. The working papers need for the short-term duration. The short-term duration. If you say short-term duration, they are applied for the current period of the audit, the current period of the audit. So we have examples of kind of working papers like audit program. Audit program is an example. Audit program is an example of such kind of a working paper. Audit program is an example of such kind of a audit working papers. And lastly, for this area, the ownership and custody of the working papers for retention. So the ownership and custody of the working papers. ownership and custody of the working papers. So we shall put something on the working papers. For working papers, audit working papers refers to 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 all the information documents and facts prepared by the auditor in order to provide evidence and for reference of work done by the auditor. Audit working papers may be in form. Audit working papers may be in form of data stored on paper, films, or electronic media. Let's go to the importance of working papers. For one, they are maintained for future references. Yes, so that's one of the importance, but they are maintained for future references. Like if you want to get to know if the audit work was planned, for audit working papers. That's how to become an auditor plan, auditor programs, auditor strategies. Also, you want to get to know yes, audit work was controlled. Make reference to the audit working papers. If you want to get to know there was a review of the audit work done, we shall make reference to audit working papers. So they enable the references yes, audit work was planned, audit work was controlled, and also audit work was reviewed. Number three, they provide documentary evidence. Again, they can provide evidence that there was work done, that audit work was done as per maybe the plan. There was proper control measures put in place, and also adequate reviews was taken. And next, they can be used as a defense tool by the auditor. E.g., on negligence allegation, e.g. on negligence allegation. And next, they are the basis of expressing an opinion. They are the basis of expressing an opinion on the financial statements. They are the basis of expressing an opinion on the financial statements. Affirmation, they provide the basis, they provide the basis, they provide the basis of exercising the right of lien, of exercising the right of lien, of exercising the right of lien, until the auditor is fully remunerated. Until the auditor is fully remunerated. Until the auditor is fully remunerated. Until the auditor is fully remunerated.